Who is the best example of you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain? Fritz Haber. He discovered a way to synthesize ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen gas, what is crucial for fertilizers. He was also later employed by Germany during World War I to find a way to weaponize chlorine, thus becoming the father of chemical warfare after successfully doing so. Basically, he saved billions and killed millions. Marshal Philippe Pétain from France. WW1 hero after Battle of Verdun and WW2 head of the collaborationist regime of Vichy that helped the Nazis. Jim Jones. It is said that if he would have died in the 60s he would have been memorialized as a civil rights hero. He was the first to integrate churches in Indiana. He pressured local restaurants to allow African Americans to be able to eat there. He paid the bills of the poor. Many lived in his house. He adopted needy kids of various ethnicities. He opened soup kitchens in rough neighborhoods, no-cost nursing homes, and lived a modest life with little to his name to make it all happen. He also toured the evangelist circuits to making large sums of money, just about all of which went to support his poor congregation, of which there were thousands of members. After many years of this service, something happened: drugs, narcissism, paranoia, and wild ideologies that pushed him into a complete monster. He convinced about these poor people to follow him into a jungle to live out their communist fantasies only to be murdered by Jim. 909,918 men, women, and children including Jim and his wife died by poisoning on a single day. Jim died by gunshot wounds. My dad. He was always against the war in our neighborhood. Long story short, he wrote an apparently strong-worded letter about all the changes he would make, rules he would enforce, etc. There happened to be a vacancy up for grabs and he ended up as the president. Now he walks around the neighborhood bitching about everyone else's yards. Oscar Pistorius. From global inspiration after winning multiple gold medals running as a double amputee, to convicted wife murderer. Benedict Arnold. He was possibly the Continental Army's best battlefield general, and he led the Americans to victory at the pivotal Battle of Saratoga, where he was wounded. Had he succumbed to his wounds, the Northeast U.S. likely would be covered with statues of the man. As it was, he stewed over the lack of recognition of his greatness and eventually sold out his country to the enemy. Now, his name is synonymous with treason. Blizzard Entertainment. The African National Congress. The party mainly responsible for the liberation of the South African people from the apartheid regime. Now just a group of totally corrupt cronies. Rudy Giuliani. From America's mayor to America's nightmayor. A whole load of these examples prove that it's not you become the villain, it's that eventually your secret villainy gets found out. Alice Sebold. She wrote a best-selling book about a young girl's rape and murder, The Lovely Bones, that she said she was able to write because of her own experience of being sexually assaulted. She made millions off the film rights and was hailed as a hero for her strength and resilience. Sebold went on to write a memoir titled Lucky about the rape. After the memoir was picked up by Netflix as a documentary, producers began to notice inconsistencies in her story and started to suspect something wasn't right. The Netflix project was shelved, lawyers got involved, and the case was officially reviewed. DNA evidence proved Broadwater's innocence. It was discovered that she had been coached by police and prosecutors and lied on the stand under pressure, insisting she knew Anthony Broadwater raped her. Her claim that she definitely knew it was him was the only evidence against him other than a hair sample that was later debunked as junk science. The man she accused spent 16 years in prison for a rape he didn't commit while she made mad money off being a victim of sexual assault. She went from being a hero to women to victimizing an innocent man. Edit. She eventually apologized, and then here is a good article explaining how the inconsistencies in a memoir she was writing led to the discovery that she had identified the wrong man. Another great article, this one from the Times, that details the entire case from the beginning and explains how a team of lawyers had him exonerated. Edit 2. For clarification, Alice Sebold was the victim of a brutal rape. She didn't make that up. She identified the wrong man, an 18-year-old black student at Syracuse, as her rapist. As many have pointed out, she was pressured by prosecutors and the police to make an ID and as a traumatized young woman the misidentification of her rapist is to some degree understandable. TLDR. She was in fact raped. She identified the wrong man and he was sent to prison for 16 years before a legal team proved his innocence through DNA evidence. Although she was aware of this long before it was made public, Siebold apologized 8 days after Anthony Broadwater was released. Kevin Spacey would have gone down as an acting legend. What makes him so much worse is that he's abrasively unapologetic about it. And his only response has basically been weaponized narcissism. Get accused of raping a drugged 14-year-old? Ladies and gentlemen, I am a gay man. That was his official response to something that bad. Hey guys, I know y'all called this 2 decades ago, but I like dudes. When it kept getting worse and more accusations about his assaults and general toxicity came out, motherfucker releases a video as President Frank Underwood, though he's already been written off of House of Cards, glaring at the camera and giving these sinister threats to those that want to come after him. He even announced plans to work on a film after his fall where he'd be playing a cop chasing a sexual predator. Which is almost entirely so that Googling, Kevin Spacey rapist, would populate with stuff about the movie to muddy the actual news. Fucking vile. I hate it because he was genuinely one of my favorite actors after Usual Suspects, Say 7N, and American Beauty. But it turns out, his ability channel that weird, slightly off-putting vibe in the weirdo characters he played was just him taking the mask off. Chrome vs. Explorer. People forget, but Chrome was once viewed as the heroic frontier market breakers. I just hope Firefox will die a hero. Jimmy Savile. When he died someone paid £130,000 for his silver Rolls-Royce because it was his car and he was so loved, famous. His body was displayed in Leeds my sister went to see and he was adored across the nation. That was until all of his evil deeds were revealed. His body is now buried in an unmarked grave so that it can't be destroyed. He died a hero but could have easily become public enemy number one, especially in the era of Me Too and Jeffrey Epstein etc., had he lived a little longer. Joe Paterno. Penn State football coach. Built the program into a nation's powerhouse. Got his kids to graduate. Helped build the university donated millions. Many of his players still swear by him. But he almost certainly ignored his defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky grooming and abusing kids through Jerry's charity. Paterno was fired and died shortly after before the investigation was really ever even started. Every time his name comes up now it ignores any good thing he ever did and is only ever associated with Jerry Sandusky. Aung San Suu Kyi. Long-suffering symbol of peaceful democratic resistance to tyranny, then one sniff of power and she showed she was also a bigoted genocide denier. Lance Armstrong. Dude was a cycling legend who successfully battled cancer and was looked upon as an inspiration and motivation by millions. Until they found out that he used performance-enhancing drugs. And they stripped his titles. From a cancer-defeating sports legend to a drug-cheating athlete, his downfall was really sharp. The biggest issue with him isn't that he used PEDs, everyone in that era of cycling used PEDs. It was widely known that he was on them. The issue for me, and a lot of people, is that he and his team went to extreme measures to destroy the lives and reputations of anyone around him who accused him. Even people who were around him but not accusing him were wrecked. He was an incredibly bankable star athlete with sponsorships out the ass and needed to keep up his reputation. Honestly, I think if he had just shrugged and was like meh, the way Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire did, he'd be fine, but instead, he worked so hard to discredit everyone and destroy careers. When he had finally had to own up for his crimes, he had built up so much ill will that everyone in cycling was excited to see all the payback. Even in his Oprah interview confession, he was an asshole about it. I think he was just a huge asshole with a ton of power who eventually created his own downfall. Joss Whedon. This one still hurts me. He really was my hero as a teen. He gave me the sky and took it away from me. That is one of the best takes I've seen on this issue. I still love his stuff, especially Buffy, but rewatching now as a mom I kind of worry that the younger actresses are okay. It's kind of distracting and sad. Apparently, they are still processing the damages dealt to them during Buffy all these years later. I take solace in that they found solidarity and that their healing is supported by the mainstream online community. Oh God. Very sad and fitting use of Firefly's intro. Facebook. When it first came about, it was seen as a safe social media because you had to have a student ID to make an account. It was for high school and college students only. Parents, adults at the time were worried about their kids having contact with adult predators on MySpace following many horror stories from AIM and MySpace interactions. Now it's a shit show of adults posting 24/7 and kids lying about their age to get an account. Data mining users, normalization of sharing personal data, and the company not giving a shit about online safety. Jared from Subway. His career ended the way it began, trying to get into smaller pants. Started with a mild cholesterol problem, ended with child molesterol problem. Edit. I'm not thanking you for awards. You're worse than I am. Surely not the best example. But self-employment. At some point you'll have grown your business enough to need employees. That's when you are prone to become one of the bad guys you never wanted to work for. Or you simply don't grow enough. Edit. As I said, this isn't the best example. I don't intend to come across as condescending or biased. If you have differing opinions or experiences, please share them.